Greetings. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this unique conference, especially to my good friend, Dr. Margaret Gitau, and my good colleague, Dr. Ajit Srivastava, to lead and to follow up and sending us all the communications reminding us about this conference. I have had the honor to lead an effort to conduct a survey recently and report the results of the survey at this conference. I know there are many people in the audience, those who have contributed in getting all the results and all the data, communicating and connecting with various survey respondents. And we thank you all for your help. That was all our colleagues from our project, as well as our African friends and colleagues from all different parts of Africa. This project, this work was conducted as part of the Appropriate Scale Mechanization Consortium, which is a project that we have had for last several years. The purpose was to evaluate and scale up informational technologies for smallholder farmers in Asia and West African regions. We wanted to reach 5,000 farmers and impact 5,000 hectares with appropriate scale mechanization tools and techniques. We emphasized on the suitability, scalability, and sustainability of the technologies and used four-pillar approach: technology innovations, entrepreneurship, policy infrastructure, and capacity building. With this project, along with the technologies, we emphasize cross-cutting issues of gender integration and youth engagement in all of our activities throughout last several years. Our project had several countries: 2 countries in Asia, Bangladesh and Cambodia, and 3 countries in Africa, namely Senegal, Burkina Faso, and at the beginning of this project, we had Ethiopia participate on agricultural mechanization activities, women empowerment, and youth engagement. This survey was our final task in this project that we just conducted, and we initiated in 2021 with a lot of feedback that we got from many consultants and many of our project partners from Africa and Asia and in the US. This electronic survey was then launched on Qualtrics platform by our experts at Kansas State University in January 22. After several reminders, finally, I think we completed this gathering of all the information by summer 2022. And altogether from Africa, we had about 1,350 respondents. If we break down that, we can get about 914 from Western Africa, 238 from Eastern, 115 from Southern, and about 19 from Middle Africa. Little background on our survey respondents from Africa. Approximately 78% respondents were male and the remaining 22% were female. 60% respondents had more than 10 years of experience related to agricultural mechanization. 37% of the respondents had graduate education and about 33% had no formal education. Leading crops that we received responses about were maize, peanuts, millets, and rice, with 89% of the crops being either dryland or rain-fed agriculture. The distribution of our respondents were about little more than 50% were from farmers and practitioners, about 12% from research institutions. Universities and colleges consisted about 9%, private sector about the same, non-governmental organization about 7%, government development agencies about 6%, and farmer organizations of about 2%. The topics that we addressed in this survey that we conducted all over Africa were major crops targeted or grown in Africa. We categorized them in grain crops, vegetable and fruit, root crops, and sugarcane. All the crops that we received responses, we categorized under these 4 main categories. We also collected information on the prevalence of solar power technologies for various different operations, including household. We wanted to know the limitations of agricultural mechanization, its adoption and expansion or scale up. Perceptions regarding the sources and availability of information to farmers and their uses were also collected. Our survey results also have good information on the status of women participating in agricultural operation and their interest as well as the barriers for their participation. Similar information are collected for youth engagement. At the end of the survey, our data were regarding if there are any conservation practices used in agricultural operations in Africa. So with those information, we launched the survey, and with the help of all our various different ASMC partners in Africa, as well as in the US, we were able to collect significant responses. Like we said, about 1,350 responses were received. Here are the major crops that are grown in Africa as per responses from all our participants. We had crops like starting from pigeon peas to all the way to maize. And as you can see in the bottom half of the screen, the cereal crops like rice, millets, groundnuts, maize, and all had a lot of responses. And we then categorized all the crops into these 5 or 6 categories of the cropping systems: root tuber based, legume based, vegetable horticulture based, agropastoral based, mixed farming system, and cereal based. You can see the percentages of responses that receive in each of these category. And we will be, most of the results that I will be presenting because of time constraint at this conference are the crops based on the cereal based one. Here are the current status of power sources for grain crop operations. If you look at that, the blue lines indicate no technology, means mostly human power and hand technologies are used, hand tool technologies. The orange color one is not applicable, and then the red one was for the animal drought technology. So if you look at that, from irrigation, drainage, and land preparation, these are various different agricultural operations that we wanted to know the status. We can see that for most of the operations, there was no technologies available. So most of the operations are done by human power. And that is the significant finding. And we kind of had the hypothesis on that from our personal knowledge and the knowledge of our African friends, those who helped in. So this validated our assumptions. So if you look at that, the need for mechanization, after the people responded, then in the same survey, they also asked, are there any needs for mechanization and in which? And people said overwhelmingly that for most of these operations, as indicated by the blue lines, there is significant need for mechanization. And again, these data are all for grain crops, and especially on the land preparation, fertilization, harvesting, drying, storage, and all those lines that you see towards the bottom of this graph, there is significant need for mechanization. in terms of prevalence of solar power technology, the people responded that we know there wasn't any solar power in any of this use, like lighting or drying or irrigation, but there are some solar power used for indoor, outdoor lighting, businesses, household, etc., for drying crops and vegetable, and the little one that are used also for solar power drip irrigation system, which is also the one of the practices that we emphasize through our appropriate scale mechanization consortium. Now, what are the limitations to the mechanization and in its adoption and scaling it up? As you can see again through this, the blue lines are strongly or somewhat disagree, and these no color lines are strongly or somewhat agree. Most people responded that the cost of technologies or the machineries was a major barrier for mechanization adoption. Access to financial resources, lack of knowledge on available technologies, availability of maintenance and support services, land ownership, availability of technologies and machineries, long-term land tenureship, all those played a major role into adoption of, or rather non-adoption of, agricultural mechanization and its scaling up. From our personal knowledge, when we ask our friends in Senegal, they never had shortage of tractors, but they do not have any service or any maintenance at one point, and that's what discouraged from farmers from adopting or scaling it up agricultural mechanization. Just to give you one example out there, the one good thing that we learned from this survey, if you look at the blue line here, that the perception that mechanization is not profitable, people strongly disagree that. So that means if any efforts are carried out to remove the barriers of technology adoption, with the cost to banking services and all, we do not have to spend too much time in convincing people that mechanization is not profitable. Most people believe that, more than 75% people believe that mechanization is beneficial and then should be adopted. The perceptions regarding availability of information to farmers, again, as you can see with the blue lines, the information is not readily or easily available or accessible, especially for these climate smart agricultural technologies, greenhouse gas emission or water footprint reduction and all. People are not having that information easily, or that information is not given to them. There are some given information is available by some farmers on planning, farm management, harvesting, and some type of crop insurance and loans and all, but not much, as you can see that. Regarding the status of women in participating agricultural operation, among most of the operations, the post-harvest technologies utilize a lot of the women expertise, or the women participated in threshing, processing, drying, and harvesting. That's the whole world. Most of the developing countries is that the same story continues. However, irrigation, drainage, and others, not many women participated. But again, these are the perception of the respondents who responded to our survey question. Then we looked at, are the women interested in agricultural mechanization? Here, it shows that women are strongly interested. Here, you look at the strongly agree in agriculture. However, on the last set of graph here, it shows that because women also experience significant barriers for participating in agricultural mechanization, They have some information available, they have some access to financial capital, but that isn't enough to move the needle up there. So the bottom line is women are strongly interested, but they have significant barriers in participating or adopting agricultural mechanization and scaling it up. Similar results are obtained for youth engagement. Our survey indicates that the youth, and in our case, we consider youth all the way up to the age of 30. That's the USAID definition. So they are interested. However, there is significant barriers for youth. One of the barriers that, as you all already know, is not making it profitable or entrepreneurship or bringing some type of financial incentive for youth in agricultural mechanization. So there are plenty of opportunities to bringing youth as well as women into agricultural mechanization. Status of conservation practices, if we looked at that, there are currently not many conservation practices are used. For example, if you look at that here, and the crop rotation, yes, is a very common practice all over Africa, especially in Western Africa, for the conservation, this type of conservation practice. Cover crop, very little. But I think one of the reason is that information isn't provided to most of the farmers. Crop residue management, some, but the nutrient recycling from livestock, as you can see that in Africa, that is heavily used, which is a wonderful finding that we saw. And most of this is in Western Africa because our respondent numbers are heavily weighted from Western Africa. So there are also opportunities exist to bring conservation practices into the African agriculture. Now, these results that we presented again is based on the grain crop. However, similar results are obtained for roots and tubers, as well as for vegetable crops out there. The results, the amounts are a little different, the quantities are different, but the trends we found very similar. When we did compare these results with other developing countries in Asia, we found similar results. That means what we have in Africa, the trends, the limitations, the barriers for agricultural technologies, similar barriers exist in other countries all over the world, in developing countries specifically. So I think these results can be interpreted for or utilized for developing further plans or further projects for bringing agricultural technologies, conservation practices in Africa out there. So we have a lot of people help us. So here are a list of all our partners and organizations that not only helped us achieve our objectives of 5,000 hectares and reaching out to 5,000 farmers, which we did, but also, helping getting significant numbers of respondents in our survey. So thank you very much. We really appreciate that. I'm very thankful for all the organizers again for this conference and bringing this platform so we can all share some of the information and then go further in modernizing African agri-food system. Thank you very much.